I'm in my 8th year working as a pediatrician. Every day at Boston Children's Hospital, I face the reality of children's lives. When walking through the hospital, I always wear a simple J.Crew dress under my white coat, aiming for a modest yet clean appearance. Dr. Wilson, another wonderful surgery today. Whenever colleagues greet me this way, I feel a bit embarrassed. After all, my daily life as a Wilson family wife is far from glamorous. Working at a Harvard Medical School affiliated hospital is a source of pride for me, but it holds no value in my mother-in-law's eyes. How dare a woman of such low breeding marry my son? Margaret, my mother-in-law, would never say such words in public. She's known as a philanthropist and a devout Christian, a pillar of Trinity Church in Weston and a well-known figure in Boston high society. Sitting in the front row at Sunday services with her luxurious Cartier cross necklace gleaming at her chest, she embodies the ideal upper-class lady. But her public face and private face are like two different people. Our family lives in an upscale neighborhood in Weston. The 12,000 square foot mansion is nothing like the middle-class home I grew up in. This season, the vast garden designed by professional landscape architects is beautifully adorned with blooming lilacs and hydrangeas. Inside, antique furniture fills the rooms, with a massive Italian chandelier hanging overhead, something that still makes me feel uncomfortable. My husband Michael serves as an executive at a Silicon Valley startup. With his Harvard MBA, he's been recognized for his business acumen and has quickly climbed the corporate ladder. Tall and well-built, wearing his Brooks Brothers suit, he looks every bit the executive of a first-class company. Jennifer, meeting you was the greatest treasure of my life. That's what my kind husband tells me. The Tiffany wedding ring shining on the ring finger of my left hand is proof of that love. But in front of his mother, he becomes like a different person, unusually quiet. Our 6-year-old son Ethan is a first grader at a private elementary school. Dressed in his Brooks Brothers children uniform, he has a bright and honest personality that makes him popular with other children. I feel happiness as a mother every day watching him enjoy breakfast made with organic ingredients purchased from Whole Foods. Lately, though, he's begun to appear strangely tense in front of his grandmother. "Mom, going to Grandma's house is..." I should have been more sensitive to my son's words. As a pediatrician, I should have noticed even the slightest change in a child. Now, I'm filled with regret. My parents are concerned about this situation. My father Robert is known as one of the most influential lawyers in the state, and my mother Catherine is involved in charitable work as an important member of the church. Both of them had apparently sensed the difference between Margaret's public and private faces. They hadn't missed the subtle changes in her attitude at country club dinners and charity events. "Jennifer, I'll always support you and your son," my mother told me, gently holding my hand during lunch at the Capitol Grill. Everything began to change one Monday in late May. Michael left for a business trip to Silicon Valley, and because of a medical conference the next day, I had to leave Ethan with my mother-in-law. "Don't worry, I'll take care of Ethan," said Margaret with an elegant smile, and I had no reason to doubt her. In the soft early summer sunlight coming through the window, Margaret, dressed in a top-of-the-line Oscar de la Renta dress, looked almost saintly. It was a peaceful afternoon with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of lilacs from the garden. After my 36-hour shift, I walked wearily toward the Wilson family mansion. The May sunshine was bright, and as I passed through the garden with the sweet scent of hydrangeas in the air, I sensed something was wrong. I couldn't hear Ethan's energetic voice, the gardener working, or the maid moving about, all sounds I would normally hear. I took off my flat shoes and stepped into the mansion. Beyond the heavy entrance door stretched the usual elegant space, Italian marble floors, French antique furniture, and light from the chandelier pouring down from the ceiling. But this silence was clearly unusual. "Ethan. Mommy's home." My voice echoed hollowly. No response. This is strange, it's never this quiet. My instinct as a pediatrician told me something seriously wrong had happened. My heart beat faster, and my palms began to sweat. The living room was empty. I only noticed an expensive porcelain teacup left half full on the table. Next to it lay Margaret's Hermes scarf, carelessly placed. "Ethan. Where are you?" I ran up the marble staircase to the second floor. The master bedroom, Ethan's room, the study, there was no sign of anyone. Even the toys that would normally be scattered across the white carpet were nowhere to be seen. Then I heard it, a faint sobbing sound that froze me to the core. I listened carefully for the direction of the sound, which seemed to be coming from the backyard. Opening the large French doors, I stepped into the well-maintained garden. The spring sunlight was still bright and the scent of roses hung in the air, yet somehow there was an ominous feeling. And then I stood frozen in front of the doghouse in the corner of the backyard. His Brooks Brothers children uniform was dirty with mud and torn in places. Dog food was scattered around. And inside that small doghouse, my son was trembling. "Ethan. What happened?" I rushed over to embrace him, but for the first time, Ethan pulled away from my arms. "Mom." His small lips were pale and trembling. His eyes were swollen with tears. "Grandma said, I'm not family." His thin finger pointed to his own arm, where marks from being tied with rope remained. Though I was used to seeing such scars as a doctor, seeing them on my own son's body made me nauseous. "She said, live outside, like a dog." Ethan's voice was broken. At his feet was a worn dog bowl. It undeniably contained dog food. I wanted water, but Grandma turned off the faucet. Something snapped inside my head. Back in the mansion, Margaret was elegantly drinking tea in the living room. Dressed in a Carolina Herrera dress, sitting straight with her expensive baccarat teacup, she looked like a queen. The evening sun coming through the window cast an eerie light on the diamond of her ring. "Welcome back. I prepared a suitable home for your son." Her voice even had a proud ring to it. With a trembling voice, I asked her, "Why would you do such a terrible thing?" Margaret slowly set down her teacup and put on a perfect smile. Her gesture was like when she solicited donations at a church charity event. Lower-class family members deserve appropriate treatment. Don't make me laugh by suggesting that a child of your... She looked me up and down, appraising my J.Crew dress. Cheap bloodline could be the heir to the Wilson family. When we arrived at the Thompson family mansion where my parents lived, stars were already twinkling in the night sky. In the study of this imposing colonial-style mansion befitting a generations-old distinguished family, my father Robert was looking at photographs with a trembling hand. This is clear child abuse. The voice of my father, the most influential lawyer in the state, was unusually shaky. My mother Catherine was embracing Ethan and crying. Her high-end silk blouse was wet with tears, but she didn't seem to care. "First, let's secure the evidence," my father said, regaining his composure as a lawyer and taking action. "I have photos and videos I took," I said, offering my phone. The doghouse, scattered dog food, the marks on Ethan's arms, I had meticulously recorded everything. "We also need a diagnosis from the emergency medical team," my father continued, taking notes. "Jennifer, as a physician, please record your son's condition in detail." My mother had already started making phone calls. Her connections as a pillar of Trinity Church in Weston extended to every corner of Boston high society. About tomorrow's annual charity breakfast. My mother's voice lacked its usual softness. "I'll need to make some changes to the plans." After finishing treating Ethan's wounds, I sat down at my computer. Maintaining my composure as a doctor, I created a medical report for my son. Skin abrasions, mild dehydration, psychological trauma. Seeing these medical terms dancing across the screen almost brought tears to my eyes again. Just then, the butler announced a visitor. "Mr. James from Massachusetts Child Protective Services is here." A veteran staff member of the Child Protection Bureau and an old friend of my father had already begun to take action. Despite his mild appearance, there was a sharp light in his eyes. "This is clearly an emergency case. We'll begin investigation immediately." However, my father shook his head slightly. "We'll proceed with legal measures carefully. But for someone like Margaret, that alone is not enough." My mother continued quietly. "Tomorrow, more than 500 people from Boston's upper class will gather. The church's annual charity breakfast. It's Margaret's most important social occasion as a known philanthropist." My father nodded. "Both direct legal measures and social sanctions are necessary." That night, we made detailed plans. Press materials for major local media. Plans for spreading information on social media. And a presentation of the decisive photographic evidence. Late at night, as specialized IT technicians finalized the presentation materials, my mother's phone kept ringing. Her voice gradually spread to influential women throughout Boston. "Everything is ready." Before dawn, when my father announced this, we already had a perfect plan. At 8 a.m., the hall of Trinity Church in Weston was filled with the glamorous members of Boston high society. Oscar de la Renta, Carolina Herrera, Chanel, women dressed in the finest dresses. Men in the latest Brooks Brothers suits. And Margaret, making her entrance as elegantly as always. Her expression still showed no shadow of concern. "Now, let us begin this year's charity event." My mother's voice resonated throughout the venue as she stood on the podium. Suddenly, shocking images appeared on the screen, Ethan trembling in front of the doghouse. Scattered dog food. The marks on his arms. And the decisive photograph capturing Margaret's cruel smile. The venue froze. "These are the events my grandson experienced yesterday." My mother's voice was cold as ice and sharp as a blade. "This is the true face of Margaret Wilson, known as a philanthropist." Shocked voices rose from the audience. Mobile phone cameras were pointed at the screen one after another. Posts to social media could no longer be stopped. The murmurs quickly turned to voices of condemnation. At that moment, the venue doors burst open and local major media rushed in. They were press members meticulously prepared in advance. Camera flashes illuminated Margaret's pale face. Margaret's perfect makeup began to crumble. On the 47th floor of a high-rise building in Silicon Valley, Michael Wilson was in the middle of a presentation for a billion-dollar M&A deal. Dressed in a top-of-the-line Brooks Brothers suit and checking the time on his Apple Watch, he was methodically advancing through his slides. And our company's strategic advantage in this deal is. At that moment, his iPhone 15 Pro in his pocket began to vibrate intensely. Normally, he would ignore incoming calls. But somehow, this time was different. As if sensing something, he took out his smartphone. The screen showed countless unread messages. And a series of shocking images. This concludes today's presentation. Mr. Wilson. This is a billion-dollar deal. The Silicon Valley investment moguls raised voices of confusion. But Michael's expression had already changed. What's more important, my son and wife, or $1 billion? I choose my family. As soon as he left the conference room, he arranged for his private jet. But there was something he needed to do first. On the other end of the phone, Margaret was trying to make excuses in a flustered manner. That's enough, he said. That night, important figures gathered in the reception room of the Thompson family home. I propose a complete revocation of the property division, said the Wilson family legal advisor. All previous charitable activities and social contributions should also be nullified. No objection, Michael's voice held unprecedented strength. Outside the window, the Boston skyline quietly glowed in the night. A maid carried Dom Perignon champagne between the heavy furniture of the reception room. However, no one was in the mood for a toast. We need to start a new life, Michael said, slowly taking Jennifer's hand. There was still a slight tremor in her hand. Ethan's psychological counseling will also begin, announced the Thompson family's private physician. The best specialists at Boston Children's Hospital have already formed a team. The next day, at the pediatric ward of Boston Children's Hospital. Jennifer, I'm truly sorry, Michael's voice trembled. His eyes clearly showed regret. This deep emotional turmoil was unimaginable from his composed appearance in the high-rise conference room. It's my responsibility for not seeing my mother's true nature. For the first time in my life, I feel like I've made a decision based on my own will. It's all right, Michael, Jennifer answered quietly. We still have a lot to do. In the hospital bed, Ethan was sleeping. His expression was peaceful for the first time in days. PTSD treatment takes time, the attending physician explained. But with the love of family, he will surely recover. Listening to those words, Michael strengthened his resolve. First, to sell the Weston mansion. It was a decision to let go of the 12,000 square foot building and all the memories there. Let's choose a new home together, the three of us. Next, to relocate his work base to Boston. The billion-dollar deal in Silicon Valley was already a thing of the past. I want to value time with my family. What else do I need? And finally, to establish a new foundation for child abuse prevention. I want to turn our sad experience into hope for someone else." Jennifer deeply nodded at her husband's determination. As a physician, as a mother, and as a human being, she too had things she could do. While looking for a new home, the family stayed at the Four Seasons Hotel Boston. The Boston cityscape viewed from the presidential suite on the top floor symbolized the beginning of a new life. "Hey, Mom," Ethan, who was about to fall asleep, called out in a small voice. "From now on, do I have to see Grandma?" Jennifer momentarily lost words at that question. But she soon smiled gently. "No, it's all right now. From now on, we're starting a new life for the three of us. With Dad too." "Yes, of course." Michael silently watched the two. In that moment, he truly understood from the bottom of his heart what the most valuable investment in his life was. Outside the window, the Boston night view sparkled. That light seemed to illuminate their new future. And Margaret's downfall had only just begun. But that's another story. The story of the Wilson family, about to greet a new morning, was just now, in a true sense, beginning to move forward. 1 year later, in early summer, the sound of bells for Sunday service at Trinity Church in Weston vibrated through the quiet morning air. Margaret Wilson was not there. The 12,000-square-foot mansion that once stood out even in Weston's upscale residential area had already passed to new owners. The Cartier cross necklace that was once the symbol of a philanthropist was sold at auction, and ironically, the proceeds were donated to a child abuse prevention fund. Margaret now lives alone in a small apartment far from Boston. She has lost everything: her Oscar de la Renta and Carolina Herrera dresses, her luxury antique furniture, and most importantly, her social status. Margaret Wilson. Oh, that child abuse case. Her former friends now grimace just hearing her name. All her weekly church activities, charity events, and country club memberships have been revoked. Her phone never rings anymore. Meanwhile, the Wilson family's new life had quietly begun in the Brook Hill area of Boston. Thank you for waiting. Let me begin today's presentation. Jennifer's voice echoed in the auditorium of Boston Children's Hospital. Early detection and prevention of child abuse, approaches from the medical field. The screen displayed detailed data and specific prevention measures. Michael sat in the front row. His Silicon Valley work was already a thing of the past. He now operates a venture capital fund specializing in child welfare, based in Boston. That was an excellent presentation, Dr. Wilson. Warm applause came from the audience, which included upper-class women who were once close to Margaret. Their values seemed to have changed greatly over the past year. "Mom, I was watching." Ethan burst through the auditorium doors. Still in his Brooks Brothers children uniform, but his expression showed no trace of the anxiety he once had. "After cram school, I came with Dad to listen." Psychological counseling was still ongoing. But as the attending physician had said, an environment surrounded by family love was certainly healing his heart. "Let's have a special dinner tonight," Michael suggested, and the family of three nodded in agreement. Not at the Capitol Grill, but at a small Italian restaurant they had discovered together. The tablecloths might not be the finest linen, but there was genuine warmth there. At Trinity Church in Weston, a sermon was being given that day as well. The theme was forgiveness and atonement. The voice of the senior priest standing at the pulpit resonated quietly. True love exists not in social status or wealth, but in our daily actions. Among the congregation was Catherine Thompson. She has now begun new activities as the chairperson of the church's Child Protection Committee. That night, at their new home in Brook Hill, Jennifer received an email. The sender was an unfamiliar address. Jennifer. I cannot ask for forgiveness. I just want to acknowledge that you were right and I was wrong. The sender was Margaret. However, Jennifer did not send a reply that night. Instead, she went to her son's room. Ethan was already asleep. Looking at his peaceful sleeping face, Jennifer let out a deep sigh. Outside the window, the early summer night sky quietly shone. It was as beautiful as the night sky a year ago when that terrible event happened. But now, everything is different. Michael gently placed his hand on his wife's shoulder from behind. Happy? To that question, Jennifer slowly nodded. Yes. I think we've become a real family in the truest sense. They no longer needed a life surrounded by luxury brands or glamorous interactions in high society. Now they had something much more important. And the next morning, as always, a new day was about to dawn on the city of Boston.